soon as this comes up. All right. All right. All right. All right. Oh, what is that? We've had more people dying. God. Okay. All right. I'm coming up in 5, 3. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today and an honor to always be with the brilliant documentarian, filmmaker, economist. He wears a lot of hats, no pun intended. Greg PALAST, well, The Best Money Democracy Can Buy. That was one of my favorite books of all time. But, then the documentary, and now Vigilantes, Inc., America's new voter suppression hitman. We have got what could be a really game-changing election. We're in the season now. 2026 is here. It's not in November. It actually just started. We had 2 big elections in Texas, and we are looking at what could be a big election in Minnesota and in Illinois and just all over the country. That is what we are looking at. But how will this go? How will this go? Voter protection has always been an issue because everybody's not had the vote. The original intention of the founders was not for everyone to have the vote, but for propertied white men to have the vote. Well, as we've evolved, things have changed. So where are we now? What are we looking at? Well, we have a Voting Rights Act that the Supreme Court essentially gutted. Section 5, where you had to have pre-clearance. That is, we had historical cases of discrimination. Well, the Chief Justice, John Roberts, said, we've had a Black president. We don't need that anymore. This is not the United States of 1965. Really? You still have discrimination in voting. You still have inaccessibility in voting. All of that is still true today. People still need protections. Well, now we've got ICE roaming the streets of America. They are very aggressive. And indeed, they are masked, and they have unsettled the country. They've unsettled the country. We've seen them kill 2 people live and in living color. But there's more than that. They have shot other people. They have attacked many people. And now we get the word that Steve Bannon, the chief strategist for the president, in his 2016 campaign, brilliant political strategist. Whatever you think of his politics, he is a brilliant guy, and he's very bold. And he has a podcast on which he asserted that we are going to deploy ICE to the polls. And one of the things that I've learned from that particular group is that when they say something, you need to pay attention to them because they mean it, they're going to do it. He said, you're damn right. We're going to have ICE around the polls come November. We're not going to sit here and allow you to steal the country again. And you can whine and cry and throw your toys out of the pram all you want, but we will never again allow you to steal an election. Well, on his podcast was Caroline Wren. Caroline Wren is a top GOP fundraiser, and she agreed. And indeed, she followed it up by claiming that ICE activity and its funding is fueled by individuals who, quote, don't want ICE at the polling stations to stop illegals from voting. Everyone, let us just dispel this myth right now. People who are not citizens cannot vote. It's just the truth. But here we are. So let's talk about it. As we do that, I want you to like and share the show. Hey, Andre, sending you so much love. Everybody, like and share the share the show. I know it's coming at a different time, but I had to catch Greg PALAST when I could. And I hope you go to gregpalast.com because he's done something really wonderful. You can look at Vigilantes, Inc. for free. There is no paywall because he understands the urgency of this situation. Now, mind you, fortunately, he has done well. And he's got partners who enable him to do this. But be very, very clear. My father used to say, you can't ride to freedom on Pharaoh's chariot, and freedom is not free. And so what we need you to do is spread the word. Go to gregpalace.com. Why don't you have some viewing parties? Because I promise you, when you see this movie and when you see how people are systematically working to deny you access to the vote, access to the polls, you will be inspired to vote. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll see Greg almost get hurt.
Yeah.
And you will see all of this, but it's what you need to see. You have to see how tightly. Well, power concedes nothing without demand. It never has, it never will. Thank you, Frederick Douglass.
Hmm.
The fact is, this is a very very real issue, and I think all that you have been talking about, and you and Reverend Jackson have worked together for decades now, along with Barbara Arnwine and so many other voting rights advocates. Indeed, you broke the 2000 election story, the theft of that election, which is something I'm still very upset about. I've moved on, but all of these elections to me, they have context. But I had to read even this story in British in the Guardian, which is a British newspaper. I had to read your stories about our own election in the Guardian, in British newspapers, in Rolling Stone, and then after the Supreme Court had dealt with the matter, then I read you in the United States, which I thought was just a complete abdication of the responsibilities of the press. That having been said, what do you, let's start with what you make of what Steve Bannon has said they are going to do.
What they're what they're going to do is try to do exactly what they're accusing Democrats and black people of, stealing the election. And here's what they're doing. They want the ICE guys there not just for intimidation, but to prove that there are illegal aliens on the vote. So they, because part of the right now they're in discussions about ICE. But what they want in return to for ICE troops to leave Minneapolis. I mean, whoever thought we'd be talking about removing troops from the streets of America?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they won't leave unless they get the voter rolls. Now, How does all this come together? ICE and the voter rolls, etc. The GOP has been claiming, and especially the Heritage Foundation, which wrote Project 2025, that there are 5 to 6 million illegal aliens or aliens voting in U.S. elections. Now, if you're not an American, you shouldn't be voting in the elections. But what they want to do is use that as an excuse to remove every person with a Hispanic name from the voter rolls. And what do I mean by that? They want to use something called the SAVE database at ICE and Department of Homeland Security. This is a list of people who've been deported, and then they want to remove those people from voter rolls. Well, of course, if someone, but so they've tried this once before in Florida, Santita, where um, they forced the Obama administration to turn over this SAVE files, that is the list of deportees. And believe it or not, they found a whole bunch of guys named Jose Garcia and Linda Rodriguez who've been deported. And they then find every Jose Garcia and Linda Rodriguez on the Florida voter rolls, and they remove these people. A lot of people named Martinez, etc. Now, it turns out they removed 180,000 American citizens. How do I know that they're American citizens? Well, I should say all but one. There was not, out of the 180,000 people that they purged from the voter rolls, there was one single alien, an Austrian Republican. And I can't make this up. The problem is that almost all of those 180,000 people never got to vote. Oh, you were allowed to vote. And this is what they're going to do. They're going to say, oh, we're not taking away your vote. You can always do what several thousand people decided to do, is take a day off work, go to a federal court, prove who they are, and prove that they're an American citizen. This is what they're trying to create, this situation where they can remove especially Hispanic voters from the voter rolls. You're accused because, and remember, the Supreme Court said profiling, racial profiling is now legal. You can stop someone, you can arrest someone on the basis of color or the language that they're speaking. This is our U.S. Supreme Court, where the 14th Amendment now only protects corporations, not people, of the Constitution. So it's all about winning the elections. And also ICE has this is very intimidating, because what they were doing is, you're not just going to see ICE. You're going to see, this is a signal to militiamen who in 2024, and you'll see this in my film Vigilantes Inc. They were surrounding these guys in masks and RoboCop outfits and automatic weapons in Arizona, where you have open carry, and they're standing next to the ballot drop boxes, those outside ballot drop boxes. Now, if you're a Hispanic family, in Hispanic areas only, if you're pulling up to a drop box to drop off your vote and you see, two guys with automatic weapons and robo outfits and your family's in the car, you're not getting out to vote. This is exactly what they want to do. So it won't just be ICE. It'll be the militias. It'll be the Proud Boys groups, etc., the 3%ers, and the rest of that crowd.
But but Greg, hold on. When they were in Chicago, that big raid was in the Black community.
Yes.
They had the Black Hawk helicopters, and they moved into the Black community and started attacking and detaining Black Americans. Part of it is, look, we both can go throughout Latin America, through the Americas, and blend, okay?
Yes.
Because everybody's everywhere. And more Black people, quite frankly, were sent to Central, South America, and the Caribbean than were brought to the United States. So I get that part. So this is an issue that is impacting everyone. And Kevin, I will address you, and I'll have Greg PALAST speak to you as well. But just so that you know, as ICE's activities have increased, a higher portion of the people they have detained have had no arrest record. And and I've had an earlier show in which we see that as their numbers have increased, ICE's numbers have increased after legislation has been passed to build private prisons and detention centers. Okay, so this is a profit-making venture. Be very, very clear on this. They have arrested since 2006 more than 1,200 terrorists or suspected terrorists. I got it. And of course, you don't want anyone on our soil who could do harm to us. And we also have to examine ourselves and our policies so that we don't harm other people and create enemies, because we've done a lot of that. So I want to protect Americans, absolutely. But I tell you what, America will not be America if we don't have our rights. And that is what is being sacrificed. And the founding fathers warned us against that. They said, if we throw away our liberties, we don't deserve to have any rights. Now, they have said that. So, which goes to the heart of what we're talking about, Greg PALAST. Because I can understand the concerns, but a lot of the concerns that people have for safety. But the fact is, Americans have been very, very safe, Greg. Well, this is about something else. Ask Alex Pretty. Ask Renee Good. What is this? Keith Porter. Keith Porter was shooting a gun in the air in Los Angeles, where you are. Yeah. Shooting a gun in the air, and an off-duty ICE agent came out and killed him because they're shielded. Greg.
Yes.
So, wondering, just in this environment, if they're going to be deployed to the polls. This to me goes to the heart of what I saw in Vigilantes Inc. There are so many. I don't even know if we are aware of all of the hurdles to the vote.
Well, here's a question for you. You talked about that there are 1,200 terrorists, and I don't doubt that. But the question is, how many of them were registered to vote? One thing I know about terrorists, national security, they don't tend to vote.
They
They're not a big voting group.
they
So,
kind of
but
want
we're going after literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of American citizen voters. Why? How does it make us safer? Why is ICE? Why? What's the national security imperative to get the voter rolls of Minnesota? They said they'll remove the troops. Trump says he'll remove the troops from Minnesota if they turn over their voter files. Excuse me? You don't find a lot of terrorists on those voter files. And you don't find, we know from the test in Florida, you don't find any illegal aliens registering to vote because you have to show up, you have to give your ID, you have to register with an address, etc. Why in the world would they do this except, well, here's the trick. You have Trump and his buddies saying that black men, and this is the other part, the raid on Fulton County. Let's not forget Fulton County. For those who don't know, Fulton County is the heart of Blacklanta. And that when they raided those Fulton County offices, none of the papers were reporting that this was completely in response to the film 2000 Mules, where they said 2,000 black men, whom they call mules. So 2,000 black mules, black men, and they were emphasizing as black men and showing black men stuffing ballot boxes. And that's what the raid is about. So they know that, and that has nothing to do with cheating in elections or anything else. It has to do with suppressing the black vote, suppressing the Hispanic vote. And one of the ways that they're going to do this, so it gets into, they're really smart. They know how to put up all these impediments to voting, whether it's massively long lines, and you'll see this in Vigilante where where the White House, not the White House, Donald Trump had issued this film 2000 Mules out of Mar-a-Lago. And they're showing in this film, they're claiming black men are stuffing ballot boxes. They show you the videos because every drop box has a video camera on it, which is public info. And they're just showing black men putting their ballot in the ballot box. And Charlie Kirk and friends of his who are on camera are saying, oh, there's O.J. Simpson leaving the scene of a crime. O.J. Simpson leaving the scene of crime, and all it is, like Latasha Brown, who's on camera in Vigilante Scene, says, it's just a black man sticking his ballot in his ballot box. It turns out the guy that they keep showing is this criminal, this guy named Mark Andrews. He was a Verizon executive who was putting in his ballot and his wife's ballot, which is allowed under Georgia law. You can bring your spouse's ballot, and just him voting. They showed that film like 3 times that he was clearly O.J. Simpson. He was a murderer casting a ballot, extra ballots.
But but Greg, I have to tell you what was dangerous about what Charlie Kirk would do is, number one, it was untrue. But by spreading these myths, that helps to shape a narrative and shape the culture and shape the law. And this is the same guy who said he would get tight when he'd look at a black pilot on a plane. Now, it was a white man who allegedly killed him, and he was not afraid of black people at the end of his life. He was afraid of white people. He was fighting with his donors. Let's keep it 100. That's what that had nothing to do with black people. And yet, black college students could not leave were locked in their dormitories because his adherents, the people who loved Charlie Kirk, started blaming black people. Yeah. And our black college students, our black kids, many of whom who did not know who he was, paid the price for that.
Well, and by the way, I want to make very clear, like your dad, like his mentor, Dr. King, and myself, we are committed to nonviolence. And that I want to defeat Charlie Kirk's ideas with my mind, not with the truth, not with bullets. That we don't want to start that war. And so I want to make it clear, we are just because we disagreed with the guy, in no case do we want to win that war with a bullet?
Look, my brother just took on. He's the co-chair of the National Prayer Breakfast. He's a Democratic co-chair, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, and Congressman Ben Cline is his Republican colleague, who is all his co-chair, and they're great friends. And Tim Burchett, all these people, I love them all to pieces. Because I even called my brother and told him, I really like that Tim Burchett, because there's some things that he says and does. When he talked about Pentagon being war pimps, I said I love him forever. I said, well, look, I'm kind of a la carte. If I like something that you do, I like something that you do, and I go on with it. Just as I'm not going to fall out with some Democrats when I disagree with things that they do, and I disagree with a lot of things that we do. That having been said, let's stop playing these games here. I saw him give a because he had to. It was a national prayer breakfast, and the Democratic co-chair gives a prayer, and the Republican co-chair gives a prayer. My brother Jonathan's prayer went viral. Millions of people have viewed it. I mean, before we'd gotten out the building, 800,000 people had viewed it. By the time we pulled out of the driveway of the Hilton, more than 1 million. And that was just on one platform. Some people said he humiliated Trump. No, he did not. And he did not mean to do that. You cannot do this work with unclean hands and with a dirty heart. What we want, as Greg just said, we want nonviolence. That's what we espouse. And Keith, bless your heart, I didn't start this fire. I didn't racialize slavery. Somebody else did. If I could live without having to deal with anti-black racism, I would love it. But it exists. All of these isms exist, and you cannot. And Charlie Kirk, free thinker. I'm not so sure about that. Because a lot of the answers that he gave were stock answers. A free thinker, but you know what he did? He was changing his mind on the Middle East. He was doing a lot of things, and I get it. But what I'm saying to you, I'm not here to make a case for him, because there were a lot of things that he did to me that for my way of thinking. When I heard that he was shot, I actually cried on the air, because that was painful to me. I lived with the threat of assassination every day. I never thought I'd have my father into adulthood. I don't want any of that. But I'm here to tell you, don't act as if racism is not real, because it is. There was a young black boy who they said he committed suicide in Mississippi, hanging from a tree on a college campus. Does that sound right to you, Greg Palast?
Look, that's why I do
That was
encourage
just a
people
few
to see
months ago.
vigilantes, because you need to know the history of enslavement in America and how it affects the and remember, there's a lot of fortunes, like Governor Kemp of Georgia, as we show. This is a very rich guy, and he's rich literally off the backs of people, his family enslaved. The governor was the guy, his ancestors were the ones who first brought Africans to Georgia, to the American South. Slavery was illegal in Georgia. One of the few places in America was actually outlawed. And in defiance, Brian Kemp, the current governor's great 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 grandfather, got the King of England, King George, remember that guy,
Hmm.
gave him a special royal proclamation allowing him to bring in Africans in chains.
So
You
he
have
brought slavery to Georgia.
Yes, the current governor's family. Now, you have to say, do I blame it on him? No, but he's using these these racial tropes of black men stealing votes to twist the elections, because it's the only way the GOP can win. So they're still using they're using the violence and intimidation that were rampant since under his family's guidance, basically. Now you have to understand, and his career was made by his father-in-law, who was a serious segregationist, and he's covered up. His cousin, actually, like Brian Kemp's cousin, has said we need to acknowledge that our family's money came from enslaving, bringing in Africans in chains. We have to acknowledge that. He won't. Now, why is that important in terms
Mm.
of voting and immigration and ICE and everything else? The they can't win fair. Like the key to the raid on Fulton County, that's the heart that's the heart of Black Atlanta. It's also the source of the massive vote for Senator John Ossoff. They have to stop black people from voting in Fulton, or John Ossoff, the progressive Democrat, gets reelected. And they can't. The Republicans can't keep the Senate if Ossoff is reelected because they're going to lose some other seats. So he has a 70% approval rating. So you can't beat him, but you
Ossoff.
can. Yeah, Ossoff. But so
Hmm.
you can't beat him, but you can cheat him. And where are they going to? There's only one place to go, and that's they have to knock out the black vote. And they're doing it in every way and through intimidation. And they also are attacking. By the way, the Asian community is under attack in Georgia, and they are voting. They used to be a Republican
I mean,
crowd. Now they're voting
South
70%.
Asian, East Asian, I mean, Indians, Chinese, Japanese, who just Asian
Mostly,
as a group.
yeah, as a group, they're voting. Well, for like the Korean population, which is
Hmm.
very big in Georgia, a lot in Fulton County, and they are voting about 70% Democratic. So they've been going after their voter registrations. They raided in my film Vigilantes Inc. You'll see that I first from way back in 2014. You'll see me going into this office with a group called 10,000 Koreans Vote. To get 10,000 Koreans vote, you have to register 10,000 Korean Americans. And so they were registering Korean Americans. They registered thousands. They sent them to the Georgia Secretary of State to register their voters, and they didn't appear on the voter rolls. Where
Mm.
were their voters? So their lawyer, the head of the group, who's a lawyer, Helen Ho, called up the state and said, "Where are our voters? We sent in these forms." And they said, "No, you didn't. We don't have these forms." And she says, "Oh, yeah, we do. We know because we got photocopies of the registrations right here." And the response of the state was to send in robocops, like, the fully armed vests and everything, kicking the doors at this group, 10,000 Korean votes. There's these elderly vote registrar volunteers, and they're arresting them, charging them with felony crimes for photocopying the registration forms, which they had to do to prove that these people were registered. And of course, so what happened is they charged. They were holding a threat of felony charges for 2 years against these elderly Koreans and against this lawyer too. And it scared the hell out of the Korean community. Scared the hell out of the Korean American community. So a lot of them wouldn't go to the votes. The group 10,000 Koreans basically was disbanded.
Hmm.
This is the intimidation factor. Now, black people, frankly, are in Atlanta, Georgia, we're much more used to two things. One is the harassment, because it's been going on for centuries, and
Hmm.
far worse than harassment. The other thing is knowing how to fight back and resist. But to the Korean American community, we're new immigrants here. We came often from totalitarian states. We know when the signal is stay away from the polls. And this is how they're winning, scaring the hell out of Korean Americans, arresting Korean Americans, then mass arresting. They've been, they arrested black voter registrars. They removed the GOP removed Helen Butler from the election board. She's one of the great experts on voting in Georgia, a black woman who you know very well, Helen
Hmm.
Butler, a good friend. And actually, she was my co-plaintiff. We sued the state successfully. We sued Brian Kemp successfully to um, get the list of people he had purged, had removed from the voter rolls.
Do you see what Steve Bannon is doing
Yes.
in that lineage? Because I think that when people see Vigilantes Inc., you see, particularly in one state, how the system is, I mean, how the laws are enacted, how you have campaigns to elect a Governor Bryant Kemp and other elected officials. They the whole system is in place to lock us out of our vote or to lock us in, which is why you have to vote, right? I mean, do you see any continuity between what we saw in Georgia and what you've seen in Florida and what you've seen, quite frankly, all over the country? Um, when you hear Steve Bannon, what say you?
What I hear is a guy who knows they can't. Look, he's not stupid. He knows damn well there are no aliens on the voter rolls. And I don't mean that there aren't yeah, he's claiming 5 million. And I've asked his buddies for 5 names, not 5 million names, 5 names of alien voters. And we got, like I say, one, an Austrian Republican. Was the only alien we've been able to find on the voter rolls of America
But
anywhere. So
but
when
this
I
is when the Trump White House, when they went in 2016, because many of them have multiple homes, they were registered in multiple places. Didn't we see that?
there were in fact Chris Kobach, who is Trump's great vote fraud hunter.
Mr. Crosscheck, right?
Yes, he's the guy who did cross check. In the end, he only showed that there were 4 double voters in the state of Kansas. These are all people who had vacation homes in Colorado, and the judge threw it out. Said, "Well, if your residence is in one state during one election, and your residence is in another state in another election, you get 2 votes that
Are
way."
you serious?
Or yeah, but if you can't, you have to be a prime resident in one state or another. You can't be a prime resident in 2 states. Like you can't tell the IRS I live in 2 states, or no states. Yeah. So, but it was only like it was minuscule. It's nothing. This guy was claiming that there were 3.5 million double voters, and the problem is that's coming back under a presidential executive order. Um, Doge has the right to get the voter rolls of every state and check them against the voter rolls of other states to look for double voters. Now, here's the problem: there's a lot of Jesse Jacksons, there's a lot of Joe Blacks, there's a lot of David Johnsons and Roosevelts and Washingtons. There are a lot of people named Chung, a lot of people named Rodriguez. What I
And
can,
Lee,
ex-
Li, and Lee, and
yes, and I'm going to
okay.
tell you this right now, is that according to the Census Bureau, 90 of the 100 most common names in America are minority names. 90 out of 100. All right, so when you use name matching, you're going to wipe out a whole lot of people. Of those 90%, you're going to see a lot of Jesse Jacksons removed from the voter rolls. In fact, the state of Georgia identified one guy who voted 288 times. His name is James Brown. And they literally removed James Brown 288 times from the voter rolls. Now you could say, well, James Brown is a very common name, but not for a Republican. And so they removed all these James Browns under this game of checking the voter rolls in 2 states and finding out people are voting twice. If your name is James Brown or Jose Garcia, by the way, what I recommend to anyone listening, please, I beg you, check your registration. I don't care if you've been voting in the same place for 30 years. I was literally at the polling station when one woman, an elderly 92-year-old woman in a walker, was thrown out because her registration was purged. I went to the house. I went down the street to her house because her granddaughter was in tears. You'll see this in the film. This is all on camera, where she's being thrown out of the polling station. And she didn't check her registration beforehand because she assumed I voting at the same place literally for 50 years. And they removed her. And by the way, turns out that was Martin Luther King's cousin, who first voted the year he was assassinated. and they now took 92-year-old Martin Luther King's cousin Christine Jordan off the voter rolls. If they can do that, you better check your registration. They can purge anyone. And also, 5 weeks before the election, please check your registration to see if someone's challenged it, if the state has purged you.
No, go back to challenging, because challenges to your registration happen without your knowledge. That's one of the
Yes.
things that I learned from your film, that it's the stealth attacks on your vote, Greg, that
And
we don't know about. Cross
yes.
check. I mean, there's so many ways that you can get purged, but anyone, how does that happen? How does that work?
Okay. So there's two ways. One, the government can purge you, and when you have really highly partisan officials like the Secretary of State Brian Kemp, the reason he's governor is that when he ran for governor, he was also Secretary of State in charge of counting the votes. And even the Wall Street Journal said that that was insane. But that's when the state removes you in a purge. They say, "Oh, you voted in another state, Mr. Rodriguez." Oh, you or another one. Back in 2000, the reason George Bush won is when I discovered that they removed 58,000 black men from the voter rolls. By the way, it says BLA next to their name, so I wasn't guessing about race. That in Florida, they accused these black men of being felons, and because they shared a name or close to a name with someone who had committed a crime. Well, it turns out of the 58,000 people, exactly zero were illegal voters. Zero. None whatsoever. But George Bush won that election by 535 votes. Became president by 535 votes, not 1,000 votes, because they removed those black men from the voter rolls. So what they learned from that is that that's a hell of a good system. Let's find out other ways to purge people of color, because it's not even the color of skin. It's the color of the vote, which tends to be blue overwhelmingly. But by picking on and identifying black people, it's very easy, given American history and culture, to accuse black men, especially, of committing crimes. So they see this Verizon executive put in his votes, but he's a black man, and he's obviously committing a crime in their minds. And they use that. If it was just bias and prejudice, okay, you can't necessarily stop people from their biases and prejudices. But unfortunately, they're using the bias and prejudice to block people from voting, from their citizenship rights, because they know if everyone, especially black people and others and other minorities, get the vote, they can't win.
So, what will Minnesota look like? Minnesota is interesting because it has the highest percentage of registered voters who actually vote in the country, and it's considered to be the model state for election integrity. And you have the Somali American community there. They vote northwards of 95%. I think it's up to 97%, Greg. I mean, they absolutely vote. And but there's 600 police officers in Minneapolis. They're down from 3,000, but they're 2,300 ICE agents. What do you think the primary is going to look like? And they have the caucus system, so it's a big stadium and all of that. What would that look like?
Well, they're terrorizing people. If you're a Somali, and that seems to be his big target, the Somali community. I say him, Trump.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty terrifying. Are you going to show up to a caucus and be identified, and people are taking pictures of your license plate, and they're outside and they're waiting for you, and you have a Somali name that's similar to someone who has a green card and is legally here and on a path to citizenship, but they're not citizens yet, so they can't vote. But you have a similar name. And of course, to a lot of these RoboCops, ICE guys, all Somalis look the same. This is part of their bias. They're all suspect and they're all the same. And if they have a similar name to someone who has a green card, even, they're going to get arrested. So people know this and they get reasonably concerned. You got kids. Are you willing to risk your safety? Are you willing to risk being seized by ICE to cast a vote in a midterm? That's the point. They know that intimidation and threats of violence. We had 34 polling stations in Atlanta closed because of bomb threats in the 2024 election.
So when they close these polling stations, where do you go vote? I mean, you get up because you get your card, they tell you where you go vote. What do you do?
Well, I've seen signs up where they make people, sometimes they say, go here, and it could be a 20-mile drive. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. So technically, you can vote somewhere when your polling station is close by a bomb threat, but how do you get there? And if you're in if you're in an urban area and you're like me, when I lived in New York, I wouldn't have a car. You're in Atlanta, downtown Atlanta. Why do you have a car? So some people can't even get to the polling station. So and then to make sure if they already had a ballot in hand, because they asked for mail-in ballot, they can't go to the drop boxes. By the way, on election day, they seal up in Atlanta they seal up in Georgia all the drop boxes on election day. So if there's a problem, you can't drop off your ballot in a ballot drop box, which makes zero sense unless you're trying to stop people from using drop boxes. And guess who uses the drop boxes? It is overwhelmingly people of color, because they rightly don't trust the post office to mail it in. They rightly don't want to wait in line for 5 hours. And Georgia's infamous where you can't hand someone a bottle of water while they're in line for 5 hours. And we're talking some elderly people. You should see this.
But but also you have people who are not self-employed. So they don't have flexibility with their jobs. So the drop box, I can drop my vote in the box and I can go to work. You don't have a lot of space if you're not self-employed. You don't have a lot of space
Yeah.
to stand and to miss a day of work, right?
Well, that's what they're counting on. They're counting on well, for example, and let's make it clear, the drop boxes are used overwhelmingly by people of color. In Georgia, I use an example, but my film Vigilantes is national, and it's all these tricks used in Georgia used nationwide. So they know. For example, in Georgia, by law, they removed 75% of the drop boxes in Atlanta and in Savannah, the two large African American communities. And they increased the number of drop boxes in white counties. And then they sealed up the drop boxes at night. The whole point of a drop box is so, like you say, when people can't take out time during the day to vote. So they now seal up the drop boxes in the evening, the early evening, and that's that. And they know. So what happened is that there were two Senate runoffs in Georgia 4 years apart. 2 years apart, 2020 and 2022, when John Ossoff and Reverend Warnock and Joe Biden won Georgia. Because Georgia, if you let people vote, is a blue state. So it revealed its true blue color by electing two Democratic senators, progressive ones, and giving the majority to Joe Biden. So they saw brilliantly that the vote was coming out of those drop boxes. So they sealed up the drop boxes, and the mail-in and drop box vote dropped between those two elections because this trickery dropped from 1.2 million to 0.2 million. You lost 1 million votes. But what black people did was, oh man, you should have seen it. I was there, standing in line for hours, saying, "Okay, you've sealed up the drop box. We'll stand in line." And so Reverend Warnock 2 years ago was reelected. So just the drop boxes are not enough. They have to have the rest. And what they're really pushing now is this system. How do you lose your vote? Sometimes it's not the government. There's this whole new business of vigilante vote challenges. Now, what is that? That's one of my films called Vigilante Inc. This started in 1946 with the Ku Klux Klan, which incorporated itself as Vigilantes Inc. So the Klan in Georgia systematically challenged the vote of every black person in several counties, so much so that they were able to elect a Klansman as governor. So, but then the federal government in 46, under Harry Truman, put an end to this, went after the Klansmen for challenging black voters. Now, that's 46. We're in 2026, and it's now the law that what the Klan did is now protected by law. And so we literally have taken this Klan plan and turned it into the law where any citizen, as Greg PALAST, if I live in Cook County, I could say Santita Jackson should not be allowed to vote. She doesn't live here. Well, who is Greg PALAST to stop Santita Jackson from voting? Well, in 20 states now, that's what you can do, and it's not small. Last time we had something like 800,000 of these vigilante challenges. And by the way, it is entirely, when I say entirely, I'm not being, it's entirely run by these GOP Trump front organizations. I haven't found one single Democratic organization challenging the votes of a single citizen. And by the way, I'm always asked when I show the film, well, why don't the Democrats just challenge 500,000 Republicans? And and I think that you put it there. You can't, with the history. Well, maybe you should. It's your show. You're questioning me, but maybe you can tell me because it's always brought up. Well, why not? Why not just turn the tables and just start blocking their voters?
First of all, what we're looking for is fairness. My brothers played team sports. I did not. I played, he wanted me to find a sport, so I found tennis and I did ballet, right? But it was very interesting because we always, as a family, support each other. I'd go to games and I would hear him talk to them after they won or lost, but particularly after their team lost. And he said, you know what? Your character is tested in times like these. And I want you to learn to lose. I just don't want you to get used to it. Number one. But he said, what I love about sports is that the playing field is even and the goals are clear. There's fairness. What you don't want is to be cheated, Greg. And the thing is, I don't want to be cheated and I don't want to cheat. Period. I want a clean system. Let them, if you believe in capitalism, and so many people, say that they do, even though they don't know what it is. They don't. I mean, if you believe that you want this free and open season and this marketplace of ideas, then the marketplace of ideas, it has to be free and people have to be able to say and do what they want and vote how they want. But everybody needs to have equal access to the vote. And that needs to be safe doing it. So I don't want to cheat. I don't like gerrymandering. Period. I think there should be fair representation. Period. So that when you get to Congress, because we don't even have enough seats in the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House of Representatives should have been expanded by many, many times by now. The Constitution mandates that. We haven't done any of that. So if we want to talk about fairness, let's get real about this. We're not being fair. And a whole lot of people on the right, left, middle, and outside are being cheated. The people's voices are not being heard. Because you know what, Greg? I can just say this now that you've prompted me. I think everybody wants health care. The sad thing is that some people don't want health care for others.
Yeah.
And if you keep on living, that other person will be you or someone you love. You need to be careful. You know where you've been, but you don't know where you're going. Everybody deserves education, equal access to equal high quality education. That was an amendment my brother, Jesse, when he was in Congress, that he wrote. But somehow or another, we don't think everybody deserves that. People need to clean themselves up. Everybody deserves to live as freely and as fully as they can. I
Well,
mean, and so when I see these people, I'm wondering about the choke points, because that's what I saw in Vigilantes Inc. I saw just the physical and the legislative choke points to the vote. And this is in real time. This was released in 2024, but you've updated it. This is a 2026 film.
yes, very much so. Absolutely. They cannot, in Georgia, they have to eliminate John Ossoff, and who is the Democrat running for reelection. That's a national goal. He's target number one.
But does
And
he not
they
have strong support? I mean, because if
yeah,
I would think,
he's got a 70% approval rating.
well,
You
what can he
cannot
learn
beat that.
from? What can he learn from Senator Warnock?
They are quite a tag team together.
Yeah.
As you know, they call themselves the brothers, and they're known as the brothers senators. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so they learn a lot. And Ossoff, who by the way was with me, a BBC news reporter producer, that was his job before Senate. He was in the Senate,
I remember.
and we have talked about vote suppression. He knows it inside and out. I've talked to Reverend Warnock way before he ran for office at length about vote suppression in Georgia. He knows it. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they figured out how to fight back and overwhelm the steal. They can't steal all the ballots all the time, but one of the things that we have to fight here is the system that started out in Georgia, the vigilante system, where, for example, you'll meet Major Gamaliel Turner, who was, assigned to California by the military. He's the Pentagon's top expert on wars of the future, which is interesting. But so he's a career soldier, career Pentagon consultant, and his absentee ballot never came, and he says, "Where's my ballot?" He called up the registrar. I said, "Where's my ballot?" Back in near Fort Benning in Georgia. And they said, "Oh, Mr. Turner, you've been challenged." I said, "What does that mean?" He said, "Well, you can't vote because someone challenged your vote." And he said, "Well, what does that mean? How do I get my ballot?" They said, "No problem. Just come into our office and prove you're a citizen, and we'll give you your ballot." And he said, "Wait, he's an African American." He said, "You're telling me 3 days before an election that all I have to do is fly in and prove I'm still an American citizen with the right to vote?" They picked on the wrong guy because his father was co-founder of the SCLC with Reverends Abernathy and King. And he actually did fly in and got his vote. But imagine, you have to fly 5,000 miles to get your vote. He had to go to federal court to get his vote, but 4,000 black soldiers out of Fort Benning lost their vote. And a lot of them didn't even know. They're just absentee ballot didn't show up because someone challenged black soldiers. I've seen this before, where they target black soldiers.
I mean, and these are soldiers. I mean, why don't they have those on the bases? I mean, I don't understand. At the VA, all of these. I only have like a couple of minutes left here. Mm-hmm. There are just so many blocks to the vote. What is that about, Greg?
It's about winning. And look, there's the easiest way to get rid of Democratic voters is to get rid of black voters. The easiest, and then they start adding in, well, let's go after the Koreans. Let's go after the women's vote because there's a huge gender gap. That's one of the reasons why they want you to prove you're a citizen. How many people have a passport? By the way, only 1/3 of black people have passports, and only 50% of Americans have passports. How do you prove you're a citizen other than a passport and your original birth certificate? Women, 67 million women have used their husband's name legally. Well, how do they prove where's their birth certificate has a different name? So to go get a passport or get this type of proof, it's really expensive. This is a very expensive poll tax. Now, if you're wealthy and you ski in the Alps, you have your passport, so it doesn't cost you anything to vote.
Hmm.
So they're literally putting monetary and plus you take a day out or this business where you're accused of being a non-citizen because your last name is Garcia and you have to go to federal court with citizenship papers. Really? So they understand what they're doing, and they understand that also if you accuse black men, for example, of stuffing ballot boxes, white people will believe it. Unfortunately, there's too many white people who say, oh, yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah.
Even though they couldn't find one. So they're taking the ballots from the 2020 election. It is not, as the media says, it is not for Trump to prove that he won 2020, though he'd love to do that. They want to find illegal ballots, double ballots, ballots cast by non-citizens in those ballot boxes. But here's the problem. They've gone through every single ballot. And when I say they, not just the Democratic officials, but the Republican officials have gone through every one of those 70,000 ballots and couldn't find a double vote, couldn't find an unregistered voter, couldn't find anyone like that because there's a real good reason for it. There's not only cameras on these ballot boxes, but look at the envelope on your mail-in ballot. It's a barcode, and the barcode only refers to you and has your information. That's on every ballot. Every ballot is identifiable to a voter. You think it's a secret ballot? Well, if you mail it in, you've kind of waived your secrecy. But so the outside, so those envelopes are personalized to you. You can't cheat, and then they checked against the signatures and everything else. But if you can accuse black men of stuffing ballot boxes, and by the way, supposedly black men were getting $10 for each illegal ballot they stuffed in a ballot box, paid by Mark Zuckerberg and George Soros. So they're mixing their anti-Semitism with their racism.
Well, isn't anti-Semitism a form of racism? It's the same
Yeah.
thing.
Well, I'm laughing about it, but it's an
Crazy.
American tragedy. But it's so over the top that sometimes you just have to laugh because otherwise you'll be in tears
You know,
constantly.
no, I'm not going to be in tears. I'm so accustomed to it because I know that's someone else's sickness. Um, but ultimately, it hurts everybody. Because Renee Good did not think that she'd get shot.
No.
Alex Preddy didn't think he'd get shot. Bless their hearts, their white skin privilege did not protect them. Now white people have black problems because it was never really a black problem. It was a privilege problem, period.
Yes.
And what did George Carlin say? It's a club and you ain't in
Yep.
it. So, last couple of minutes belong to you. What do you want us to know? How can we see Vigilantes Inc? How can we host some parties? 'Cause, I think that a lot of people um, would want to do that, and they should.
Well, a couple things is that thanks to Leonardo DiCaprio and Jamie Foxx, you can stream the film for nothing. There's two ways to do it. One,
No, because of their generosity.
their generosity.
You don't have to pay for it. They paid for it.
Right. So,
Okay.
that's if you go to gregpalast.com, you see my name, GregPalast. You go to gregpalast.com, and there's a button to go right to see Vigilantes Inc., America's New Vote Suppression Hitmen. Or we have just finally got it up on YouTube, so you can go straight to YouTube and watch it there. But it's Vigilantes plural, Vigilantes Inc., like incorporated, and put in Vigilantes Inc. Greg Palast. It'll take you right to the film Vigilantes. And as the Chicago Tribune said, this is entertaining investigative reporting at its best. Sometimes it's funny. A lot of times it's going to make you laugh. It's going to make you cry.
Hmm.
If it doesn't, I'll pay for your therapy. And so please, and if you want to have a showing party, I just did one here in Chicago at Hinsdale. and for Indivisible. And I've done, obviously, we previewed the film originally at Rainbow Push.
Mhm.
And so if you want for your group or organization to have a gathering, in fact, today there's one in Seattle or in Washington State, and we can send you DVDs, Blu-rays, files, high res files, whatever you need to have a showing. And it's kind of fun to get for people to get together. And in a lot of cases, if I can't come in personally, I can come in by Zoom too. We can
Mhm.
really because it's not a movie, it's a movement. Now it's entertaining. Grab your
Mhm.
popcorn, and so you want to have, so it's not painful, or it's not your daddy's PBS. It is entertaining because the vote thieves are actually,
Mm.
they're racist, frightening people, but they're really funny in a way. Is even the woman who chased me out of her house with her gun, and then you had the vigilante with his 6 shooters who actually thinks he's actually Wyatt Earp, and though it did scare Major Turner, our his soldier. He
Yeah,
was in
because
the
we're
guy's
going
house.
to
He was saying, and because by the way, this vigilante, he's we're interviewing, and he has he has a revolver like
on camera,
on
everybody.
camera. He's dressed up like a vigilante. It's crazy,
See,
and he's got this revolver, and he made it very clear to us. He said, "This." I
no,
said,
no,
"Is
he
that
made it very
loaded?"
clear to you. Mr. Turner knew what these folks would do. You were like, I can't believe, are you serious right now? I
Yeah,
mean, you
no,
were like,
he said this gun is loaded, and so Major Turner's thinking, oh, and this guy's and all he had was his mother's old 50
oh,
year old revolver and he was thinking, if this gets nasty, what do I do here?
I said, Greg, what are you doing? You were like, well, I just, I was trying to get the story. I'm like, Greg, everybody, you know what? You should have some listening parties, some viewing parties,
Yes,
because we are in election season.
right. Go to
And
gregpalace.com or
there you
contact
go.
Santita. She'll find me. Believe
That
me.
absolutely, I will do that because I think that you really need to understand. And you know what? Look, if you love Michael Moore, you're going to love this. That's what I'm going to tell you.
It's like
If
Michael Moore, but funny.
oh, oh, stop,
It's
I love
okay.
Michael Moore.
Yeah,
You all
he's a
have
good guy.
pathos, you have passion, and you have a lot of humor, both of you. But you are a giggle. So no, you giggle a lot.
I get some very tough situations, and you look back and you laugh. At the time, I'll never forget when I got chased out of this house with this armed woman. I had my camera guy, Zach D. Roberts, who but I also had a local camera crew, and these are black Atlantans, and they're in this in this woman's house. It looks like Gone with the Wind. We're not talking about some shotgun shack. We're talking about fancy, and she had those guns. And the minute she started going berserk and throwing me out, they just ran. We're going to find out how far this woman was going to take this,
You were gonna
and they
push it.
took off, and so then we had to go get someone to go pick up the equipment but you can't blame them. I mean, they're looking at armed white people who are going to say that they were, what happens, they say that they're attacked.
That's
They're
why.
standing
that-
their ground in their house.
That's why we're up north, because we've had mass migrations. We have been exiled
Yeah.
to the to the north, because when they were looking for Emmett Till's body, they found many bodies before they found his, and they could only identify him by the ring that his father, who had died in the war, in the Second World War, they could only identify him by the ring.
Mm.
So, and only God knows what they did to that boy. Everyone, you see his face,
Oh
but be
man.
very clear, everybody. He was accused of crime of intimacy. So you don't have to imagine what they did to him all night long in that shed. So God bless him. So that's why they ran, and she did not. She didn't shoot because she was not going to shoot you, at least not at that time. Please don't do that again. Greg Alice.
No, I actually, I'm only a live kind of coward. I actually run away from guns. And
No, you just
otherwise,
kept, you stayed there. I was like, Oh my gosh, Greg, really? But you know what, everybody? All of this is on film, and you need to see it because you see just how important the vote is. I mean, because these people are really they don't want the people to vote. They really don't. And you're the people. You are. And most people that they, I mean, as ICE, as the numbers have increased, the innocents who've been pulled in, that's those numbers have increased. They're losing children. Where are they? Well, we're looking at Epstein, and we're looking at children and trafficking, which happened before him, but we saw a lot of it. I mean, there's a lot that's being revealed here. Where are these kids? How do you separate children from their parents? And then sometimes parents are looking for them. What are they doing to them in these
Or,
detention centers? What's going on here?
well, remember that horribly, ICE lost track of the kids that they separated from their families. Their families which still have not been joined. There's still kids who can't find their parents, or parents who can't find their kids.
Yeah, and you know what? These people, let me tell you, what we're seeing is a lot of wickedness, and we see that the abuse of children and the trafficking of children is far more widely spread and goes up much higher than we ever knew. And so these kids, you don't just take kids into detention and they get lost. That doesn't happen. And I'm going to stand on that. And these people need to be called out, because you can see that people in the upper realms of power are just as depraved as they can possibly be.
And let's not forget that they're making these are profit centers.
Absolutely.
Okay, so like think about this. While they're talking about Somalis taking our jobs or voting illegally, you just had, according to the Wall Street Journal, the Trump family in the years since he was elected, it's only been a year, they pulled in $12 billion.
Yeah.
And now and they set up this cryptocurrency Liberty currency, or Liberty whatever the heck they call it, it's Liberty something. And they sold it, the Trump boys, with his roving ambassador's son, the Trump boys sold half of their business to Saudi royals and Emirati royals. And they got $500 million for it. This is a business that had no track record. And usually, when you invest, the money has to be invested in the business. They were allowed to take their money out. Barron, who is a kid, his name is, he got $125 million. It's a grift. And the only way they can maintain the grift and stay out of prison, by the way, a lot of these people are going to end up in prison, I'm telling you right now, or should be, is to steal the elections so that they're protected from arrest, that the con rolls on. Trump was given a $400 million plane. It wasn't given to the United States. It was a personal gift to Donald Trump by the Emirates.
Well, look at the Board of Peace.
Yeah.
I mean,
the board of dictators. You got Kazakhstan.
No. But I've got Jared Kushner running everything. I mean, he's a man without portfolio, and yet he pops up everywhere.
Yeah, well, he got $2 billion to play with.
And they have made untold sums, all of them.
Yeah.
But you know what? All these people have done. Let me tell you something. I was after the National Prayer Breakfast. A lot of people were very upset, and it was basically there were very few Democrats in the room. I said, look, they say that we elect the leadership that we deserve. I said, but it goes further than that. We elect the leadership that we are. What we're seeing right now, so much of who we are, Greg, is being revealed. We don't like what we see. We don't like the racism that we see, the mean-spiritedness that we see, the poison discourse that we see. J.D. Callender ran Sally Hemings out of Washington, D.C. She was Dusky Sally, and it was in his newspaper. This was 200 years ago. This is what we do. Okay. So the thing is, I hope that we will grow up in our politics because all these people have gone in, everybody except Carter. And either they made money while they were there or they made it coming right out the door. Just stop. It didn't begin with Trump. It can end with him.
Well, I got to tell you, but no one has come close. There's no, we know of no president. He's personally made something like 1.2
Yeah.
billion dollars from from this cryptocurrency con. They issued a Melania coin,
Yeah.
which has lost 98% of its value. But where did the money go? Into that wasn't in the film about Melania. What about your coin grift, Melania, where you took hundreds of millions of dollars from the rubes and stuck it in your
I,
purse?
I'm just saying, the congressman can do insider trading. The thing is, the whole system is a mess. Clean it out. See, because we've let Trump carry all of our sins. This stuff is not new. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
that's
just I am so tired. Oh, Greg, I'm tired of it all. I'm tired of it all. And the thing is, the log and the splint in everybody's eye, take it out. Just stop. I'm tired of the grift.
well.
Everybody.
That's the problem, though. That's why I relate the grift to the vote.
Yeah.
If they can, they're not going to. Some people talk about Trump. They're going to call off the midterms. So that's not going to happen. What they do is they're going to bend it, and you have to counter the steal. They would never cancel the election. They have elections in Russia, but who's going to Putin? Literally, he's at a different level. He's literally assassinated two of his
Look,
opponents.
we
But
assassinate people too. Dr. King was killed because of
yes,
his political positions. We do
oh,
that
no
in the United
question.
States.
Yes, but what I'm saying is now, but they still hold elections in Russia. Pretend to. They do in Iran. They do in fascist states.
Look at that pretend election that you reported on in 2000.
Yeah,
How more pretend could it be? You
that's right.
have the governor of the state that controlled the votes. That was the candidate's brother. They control the Supreme Court. A couple of the pivotal votes, their father, the former president, put them on the Supreme Court. Are you serious? We just put perfume on this.
Yes, and as you know, I became persona non grata in some newsrooms in America
In
because
some,
I challenged the American myth that we have these wonderful democratic elections.
no, 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 not in some newsrooms. Thank God for your partners. Well, first of all, your brilliance, which
Thank
cannot be
you.
ignored.
Thank you.
So no, it can't be ignored. So I'm glad that Rolling Stone, which is mainstream, but I have to read.
Kind of
I
over
have
on
to,
the
I have to,
edge.
I have to get you in Rolling Stone. I can reliably get you in the Guardian, but it's British, right? And so the thing is, corporate media, legacy media, don't want you because you speak the truth.
And
And
it's harder now than ever.
yeah,
It's
why?
it Well, because you now have a right wing takeover of media. So you have Larry Ellison's son, who was, well, last year for a while was the richest man on the planet, buying up Paramount Plus, which is CBS. As you know, that they basically ripped apart 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
And they put this basically censor in chief in charge of CBS News. And when the other networks see this, they're scared to death. So many people, they're pressuring Netflix. They're trying to kill the deal where Netflix takes over Warner and again turn it over to Larry Ellison's son. He has something called Skydance. So they're literally taking over. And then you've got an FCC chairman who is threatening the licenses of any, not even progressive outlet, just middle of the road. If they don't kiss Trump's ring and you're in media, you could lose your license.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is totalitarian
Well, people look at what they've done.
101.
People getting flagged all over TikTok. That's why everybody. Oh, I'm on Upscrolled now.
Yeah.
I'm on Upscrolled. I've moved over there.
Yeah.
So everybody go to Upscrolled, because what they've done with TikTok, I mean, I still look at TikTok and get some great things there, but the political censorship there is just outrageous. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. So, and we see that Ghislaine Maxwell has pled the fifth. There we go. So there's that.
Well, yeah, but privilege is privilege. Remember, she got moved over to a country club prison. I understand. I had a cousin who was in one of those. They're pretty nice tennis courts, scuba diving.
Well,
Is it a prison or is it a resort? But that's for
well,
very privileged people.
my brother was not in one of those, but it was a
Yeah.
nice one, but that was not, I can tell.
I can tell you, there's one in La Jolla. You might as well be in a country
Oh,
club.
well, that La Jolla is a country club. I mean, just goodness gracious. Greg Palast, I love you, and I cannot wait to have you back, but we're going to have to, I want you back very, very soon, because we have to continue to get the word out about Vigilantes Inc. And we have to have these viewing parties. And just as we cycle through these elections, I need you to talk us through what we're seeing. And I'd love to get some political feedback from you, because you've done a lot of investigating about the president and so maybe I can get you in a few days to talk about that too.
Yes.
This, that, and the other.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love for you to do that, because politics, the vote is not all that he does. And so, he's absolutely brilliant. And I love your thoughts about where the economy is going, because now the Chinese have come up with a reserve currency that a lot of the world is going to go to. But one of the things that I did see at the National Prayer Breakfast is how much of an outlier the United States is becoming, how angry Europe is with the United States, how disappointed, and how that is impacting us in terms of business. People are turning away from the dollar. They're turning away from the United States. There is a big reset that is happening, and that is going to change how we live. And I would love to get your feedback on it, given your economics background and your investigative background. Of course, you went to the University of Chicago. I don't know, all you guys who go there to do something with economics, that's where my dad did his graduate work. So I would really love to get your feedback on that.
Happy to do this. I can tell you this: it doesn't really help to turn Canada into an enemy. How do we end up in a Cold War with Canada? But okay,
Canada.
Yeah, Canada. While we were sucking up to the dictatorships of this new dictators club that Trump has created.
Look, we got them in the Middle East. That's what we're doing over there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no ceasefire.
No, there's no ceasefire.
There's no ceasefire. They're still killing Palestinians. You know it. This is terrible. Don't talk to me about Putin before you talk about that.
Yeah, well, we're talking about horrible dictatorship. And
no, there's that. There is that. I mean, that's just sin before the Lord. I mean, what's happening over there? This is terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible. So and we're going to work it out. But this is terrible. Oof.
So I will be back on to talk about the economy. That's vital.
You let me know. Let me know when you have time, because I would love for you to talk about. Let me know when you have time to talk about that. Okay. And I would love for you to explain cryptocurrency, what all of that is. There's just a lot of questions I have about, and I think that we need to know, and just how we can make it, because so many people are not doing well. That's how my brother started off his prayer, from Jelly Roll, the great singer. Yeah. He said, Americans are not lazy. We're not okay. We're tired. He said, we're not okay. We're not lazy. Americans are tired. They're working harder than ever before. And they're going backwards like never before. Greg Palast, everybody. Greg Palast. But you know what? The good news is we can make it. I'm not going to leave you with bad news. Mm. We're at an inflection point. We're at a turning point. We are the ones who have to decide the kind of country that we want, what it is that we're looking for. It's our decision. It's our decision. And you're going to have to vote it out, march it out, take back your Congress, both houses, take back the presidency. You're going to have to get involved. That's right. Stop falling in love. Make the elected officials fall in line from the presidency on down. That's what you need to do. So, all my love to Greg Palast, gregpalast.com, Vigilantes Inc., everybody. America's new voter suppression hitmen. This movie you've got to see, because you're going to see the hitmen. They're called ICE. They're going to have choke points that will tie up pedestrian and motorist traffic. What did you say? They won't cancel an election. You said they won't do that.
They won't cancel it. They'll just bend it. And that's the danger. But the good thing about America is that they can't steal all the votes all the time. And that's when you saw Reverend Warnock, John Ossoff, Joe Biden take supposedly redneck red Georgia and win convincingly. They overwhelmed the steal. They overwhelmed the racism. They overwhelmed this vote suppression. They can't steal all the votes all the time, and that just means that we have to be active. As your dad said, arrive with 5. Well, now you have to kind of arrive with 6, but it doesn't rhyme.
Maybe 25.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Much love to you. Greg Palast, everybody. Vigilantes Inc., America's new voter suppression hitman. Go to gregpalast.com. You can see the movie, but I promise you, once you see it, you're going to want to invite everybody else over and have some conversations about it. Yeah. And if you get groups together, get in touch with me, get in touch with Greg Palast so he can pop in, if only for a few minutes, because Greg will do that. Zoom is a real thing.
Okay.
Much love to you.
Thanks,
the Santita Jackson Show, everybody. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I will see you just a little bit later. Bye-bye.